My voice is also in the original audio, so just be aware I do talk over myself a little bit here. So this isn't an all-life matchup, it's not even a top-lane matchup. But this game I think is interesting because there were 8 challenges in the game. This was right after I got my placements done, patch 8.3. So I was plat 1 and I got filled into a game with 8 challenges, and it was great because that means I can rely on everyone to basically make the macro decisions I wish everyone always made in solo queue, but that usually doesn't happen. But yeah, anyway, so everyone else on my team was challenger, and the enemy team had 4 challenges and like a diamond 5. So in terms of just ranks, the game was pretty even. But spoiler alert, we completely stomped them. And part of that was because the enemy team was mostly on off rolls, we were mostly on premier rolls, or like, you know, roles we played comfortably at least. The enemy team had a few autofills or something, I'm not entirely sure. But when I looked at the game on OPGG, it did look like a bunch of them were playing champions they weren't that familiar with, or roles they weren't that familiar with. But in any case, I still think it's a really good example of how to push a lead, even if the game was mostly a stomp. And there's also some interesting stuff in the lane because it's Blitzcrank Tristana against Varus Lulu. Varus Lulu strong in lane, lots of pushing. Tristana, Blitzcrank, not as much, because Blitzcrank is really vulnerable to getting poked out there, and really vulnerable to getting pushed in. Tristana can counter push it a little bit, but like the other lane, like Varus Lulu still has control of the wave. In any case, you saw me start E here. That's mostly because at level 1 there's really no point hooking Varus Lulu. They are gonna basically outtrade you if you hook them with no follow-up available. So instead of sealing Q and then literally not using it at level 1, we were hoping the jungler, so I skilled my E, and that lets you get an auto tech reset off onto the jungle camp, and it costs a lot less mana. So the damage is comparable to skilling your Q, but you don't have to spend so much mana using it if you want to help your jungler by using an ability. So they pushed us in really hard, a lot harder than I expected them to, because they let the wave reset fully, which is not what I expected. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I'm not as familiar with like the intricacies of bot lane. But one thing it does let us do is hook them into tower really easily, which is basically the highest ratio of safety for you versus how dangerous it is for the enemy. Because when you're under your turret, it's really safe for you. If you miss the hook, it's really safe for you. If you land the hook, the enemy is like almost guaranteed to die unless they flash out immediately. Now we saw Lulu disappear, so I did ping that out. And then Varus is zoned off the wave. He's not even getting in range to like hit the minions, so because of that I don't need to zone him as aggressively. And then Lulu disappears and Kayn goes with him. So we don't, you know, play too aggressive. We have that river ward to make sure that we stay safe. But like there's no reason to be forcing too hard while Lulu and Kayn are missing. And here, like, there's not really anything I can accomplish by moving around. The minion wave is pretty wide, they're playing pretty safe, and they're also not harassing Tristana, so there's very little reason for me to show myself. But there's a small chance, like maybe 10%, 5%, that I can get a lucky pull here and we can do a bit of a trade, just as they're walking around the minions. So the cost of sitting here and doing essentially nothing during this time is very low, because again there's not really anything to do. But there's a small potential trade-off for getting a successful hook there. You see, I'm not forcing hooks too hard. I'm going for really long range hooks. Again, that's mostly just because of the nature of the lane. They have like a lot of harass. They have a lot of counter trade potential. So if I hook and the hook is only mediocre, if it's only a moderate range hook, we don't even necessarily win the trade, which is, you know, really bad for us. And then, as they're walking to the turret, kill the minion, hook the Lulu, and she's dead. And then just exhaust Varus to ensure that we win the fight. Either Varus flashes out and like probably lives, or he commits to me to kill me because he couldn't kill me through the exhaust. So he ends up committing to me, he burns all his summoners, Lulu burns all her summoners, but she did also burn flash in the mid lane. So she's burnt her ignite here and her flash was a bit earlier. Varus both summoners, but we got 2 kills to their 1. So we're going to be up in this lane. And since they have no summoners, we can take advantage of that by forcing a bit more aggressively. On the counter side, that also means we're a lot more vulnerable to jungle ganks. But if you've watched how the lane's mostly been playing out, for the most part we've either been pushed up a bit, but in relative safety, or we've been under turret. So it's difficult for them to do much with that. They don't have an amazing way of initiating until Varus is level 6, which will be coming up soon, but it's not there yet. So in the meantime, we're probably pretty safe here. You can see me, I went up toward that, because I wasn't sure if they were going to be sitting in the bush or anything. But then they both appeared in the lane, so like within the middle part of the lane, outside of the bush, so I didn't ward it. And they were pushing pretty heavily, so it's not worth warding the further bush. I go for a hook, unfortunately the minion does get in the way there. But yeah, if the lane is pushing into you, and you're mostly going to be on your side of the halfway point, it's more valuable to ward the bush closer to you rather than the bush further away from you, because you want the ward to be for the bush that's relevant to where you are and where you're going to be. And in this case, the relevant ward is the one that's closer to us, not the one that's further away. Again, we're playing pretty safe. Trista's a bit on the same page there. Like, you can see her hesitating to move forward. So there's just like not much reason to. Trista's already level 6. They're going to be hitting level 6 in maybe a couple waves, and I'll probably hit level 6 off the next full wave. They disappear. We see Lulu, but like we don't see Varus with him, which implies they might be doing dragon, or he might have backed, but then he just appears back. So I guess they're just playing really safe as well. Mid lane has died, and Kayn was also there at the time, so there's a small chance that they could come down. We do have some wards though. And then you see me go for another like max range hook into turret hook there. So again, really safe. The probability of it working is not as high as other hooks, because it's really difficult to get that set up, but when it does work, it's really effective, as you see here. So even though Lulu ulted, it didn't really matter, she still just died really quickly. I ping out Varus and Varus goes to fight Victor, and then we'd sort of just turn it around. Olaf TP's in. I expected it to be a pressure TP, but then it turns out he can just flash onto the dude and kill him. And then we have everyone in mid lane. So instead of, you know, all of us going to our respective lanes, me going bot, Olaf heading back top, we're all here. We've just killed someone, so it's pretty safe to take this, and like it's low opportunity cost. And then right as the turret is falling, but not after it's fallen, go for another hook. people tend to overstay slightly when defending turrets. But if the turret's really low, like it's within a couple hits of being destroyed, then hooking under that turret is really low risk, because even if the hook succeeds, you can just double hit the turret, it dies, and then you don't have to worry about its damage. So yeah, Lulu overstayed a little bit there. I would argue Yorick maybe did as well, but the hook did end up landing on Lulu. So again, pretty high range hook. The longer range of the hook, obviously, the more difficult it is to respond to, because you're even further away from where you thought you would be, where you thought you were safe. We haven't lost any turrets, but we have taken bot. So I guess to try and take top, we lane swap, Tristana and me go top side, and Olaf is going to head bot side. With my item build, I picked up Swifties mostly because we're doing well. I don't strictly need the defense right now, but Swifties give me more move speed, which makes it easier to land hooks, lets me rotate slightly better, and they also have a number of slows, so like there's a little bit of synergy with the slow resist there. We catch them out in the jungle, really easy fight for us. Kayn ults me, and then their bot lane tries to reinforce way too aggressively. So I take advantage of that, and again, before Kayn dies, I hook Lulu in. If you hook just before sort of a quote objective is finishing, so like killing Kayn, that's like a mini objective, and the tower before, that's an actual objective. But in any case, if you hook just before that thing is gone, then you can often catch people staying for an objective which they can no longer defend. Like in that situation, Lulu and Varus definitely 100% could not make that situation turn around favorably for them. The absolute best case scenario for them would be to maybe save Kayn and burn all their cooldowns, or maybe trade 1 for 1 if they play miraculously well and we play really badly. And in the mid lane, there was absolutely no way Yorick and Lulu could save that turret by the time they were there. And even if they got there earlier, it was 4-2 and we had Blitzcrank. Like, there was no way that was working. Here I used the CC partially to gain Aftershock. And then we finished them off. At this point the game's pretty much secured. This is like, you win 95% of the time from this situation. Especially when you have like people with this high of a rank. They're much less likely to accidentally mess something up. And they use TP to corner us a little bit here. I flash over the wall. Kayn is like, yeah, I'm still gonna chase you. I exhaust him and CC him to get Aftershock proc and reduce his damage. And then he just hard commits to killing me. And obviously dies for it. And unfortunately they do also run Tristana down using that Yorick TP. Heading back to the item build, earlier I bought a Glacial Shroud, but earlier again I bought a Mana Crystal. And if I can pause that quickly, what the resource division there was absolutely awful on our part. They were cornered, like we had them cornered in 3 versus 3, but our 3 was stronger. And we sent the low health jacks alone through the left side, and we sent our 2 healthier members to the right side. That's a really dumb thing to do. You should send one of the strong members left alone. The weak member should never be alone, because that lets the enemy team collapse on the weak part of your flank. If they had 3-man focus jacks there, we might have only gone 3 for 2 or something like that, because it would have been down to a 3v2 after Jax died. In any case, it worked out fine because they sent Lulu to the weak spot instead of sending everyone there. So, heading back to the item build, earlier I built a mana crystal. The reason I built the mana crystal was partially because I just didn't have enough gold to buy a ruby crystal and also buy a control ward, and I just wanted the control ward at the time. But mana crystal on Blitzcrank is sort of like a really crappy ruby crystal because his passive will convert the mana into a shield. So whenever you get into a close all-in, the mana will actually essentially convert with a low percentage to a shield, which is effectively a boost to health. And having a bigger mana pool also obviously lets you pull more easily. Blitzcrank's mana costs are pretty high. Q is 100, R is 100, W is like, I don't remember if it's 75 static or whether it's 70 and it goes up by 5 each rank, but in any case, like, his full combo is pretty mana intensive, but his mana pool is actually quite low. So buying a bit of extra mana is really good there. And what I upgrade the mana crystal into, the Zeke's Herald, is, in my opinion, quite underbought. You saw it come into play a little bit there. This is a level 11 Tristana. She only has 2 items, but she essentially did as much damage as if she had basically 3, because Zeke's Herald makes the attacks do a significant amount of extra damage. But the item without the link is actually still reasonably efficient. It's a bit like a locket in terms of stats, except instead of the shield you have like an ardent sensor effect. Except the ardent sensor effect only works when you ult, so like it's not as good for laning, but it's really good for sort of black and white clear-cut fights where you're either fighting or you're not fighting. Like, there's not really a sort of skirmish or harass. Like, I'm playing Blitzcrank. If the hook lands, we are fighting. Like, it's like full stop. That's it. There's no negotiation. If the enemy team isn't fighting back, then it's a free kill. And if the hook misses, then you're probably not going to want to fight. You're probably just going to back away until your hook's back. So Zeke's, I think, is really strong on a lot of tanky supports. And the aura it gives you is like a slow field aura on you, and if your linked member, usually your AD carry, if they attack someone who is also affected by the slow field, the damage is increased again on the attack. So I believe the number on Zeke's is it makes them do 25% extra damage on each attack. It's spread over 2 seconds. So how that works is the attack itself lands with 12.5% extra damage, and I'm just going to pause because we're team fighting here. We've gone way too deep. We've tanked the turret. We are not in a position to take this fight. Jax is not here. We should not have done this, and so we just bailed the hell out because the fight we took was really dumb. There was no way Olaf should have been tanking that. There's no way Olaf should have tanked that and then also gone even further in. Tristana goes in, she flashes for a kill, and then tries to fight Varus. I really did not expect her to commit to killing Varus because, as you saw, she could not win the fight. So like, I was hesitating to go in, but then she committed, and I was pretty confident that Jax could clean it up, so I committed and exhausted to just make sure that, you know, the fight didn't get any worse. Jax is super duper ballsy here. He lives on a Counter-Strike, and then has the balls to try and fight this Yorick again, like right after this, right there. I don't think this is worth it at all. Even though he kills Yorick, they get an assist, and they push our tempo down. Like, if Jack survives there, and he just recalls, then we can like start setting up Baron, which will be spawning soon. But instead, we are sort of stalled out in the short term, because Jax needs to respawn, and then once he's respawned, then we can go out and pressure the map again. So yeah, back to Zeke's. It does 25 overall, but it's spread over 2 seconds. The hit itself does 12.5% extra damage, which is okay. It's not amazing. And then the remaining 12.5 is spread as a dot. I think it's in 2 ticks, so it's like 6.x% after 1 second and then after the second. But again, if the linked target fires on someone affected by the field that's around you when you activate the item, it does extra damage. So given that it's really easy for me to activate that field, it's a pretty good buff to overall damage. So yeah, this is the field. It lasts for, I believe, 6 seconds. It's like a moderate slow, maybe 30 to 40%. I don't actually remember off the top of my head. And I got Banner of Command, honestly, mostly because while I was writing one of my articles, I like looked up all the armor items that you could buy, and like I just noticed that Banner was a bit better than I thought it was, so I just figured I'd buy it here. We were so far ahead that we didn't need like a locket or something. The fights were not close enough that it mattered whether we had 10% more fighting power or not at this stage. We could make moderate mistakes in a fight, and if they played perfectly, we were still going to win the fight. So instead of getting more team fight power, I just got like a utility power from Banner. Help us siege a little bit more while playing it really slow, really safe. And right there I just used my red trinket to see Akali through the shroud so we know where she's trying to escape to. Here, save the hook until after the dash. Silence before that, just so you can't like, I don't know, flash out or something like that. Turns out it wasn't necessary, but we got the kill anyway, and we secure the Baron by zoning them off. And again, we're so far ahead here that it's essentially impossible for them to face check into that. We have really good vision control around Baron. We have good burst damage, good CC, and obviously I'm Blitzcrank, so like if they get anywhere near anywhere where we have vision, they just get hooked and die. Their tankiest member is a Yorick, but even if Yorick was the one that was face checking, and even if he got Lulu ulted, it's very unlikely that he could survive taking into that much damage. And even if he did survive, they would have to burn absolutely everything to keep him alive. Here I hook a ghoul, kind of unfortunate. I didn't notice that the ghoul was like right in front of my face. And then I just use Banner on a ranged minion. So worst case scenario, we play this fight abysmally, and then the ranged minion will sort of make up for it by also pushing that lane. And as you're about to see, when you specifically have a ranged minion with Baron on it and Banner of Command also on it, it gains range. Like, I didn't know this. I've never been told that it gains range. It's not, I can't find this information anywhere, but apparently it gains range. That was my first time finding that out. But yeah, we got a lead here. We got a lead here in like both side lanes. I don't think mid was ahead. I think mid might have actually been behind, but it didn't really matter. They weren't that far behind. And when we took that turret down in the mid lane, it accelerated the pace of the game significantly and allowed us to continue rotating around, continue getting turrets, continue forcing with blitz, getting those picks, and then using the pick to push even more, or get even more map control, even more vision control. So yeah, to summarize how that went, in lane they had push advantage, but that lets me hook under turret. Hooks under turret are not easy to find. Enemies tend to not expose themselves as often to hooks under turret, but hooks under turret are really safe for you, and they're really deadly to the enemy team, especially if you can hook as the minions that tank the turret are dying, so that the champion you hook immediately gets turret aggro because they're the only thing in range. And then it was taking mid turret. So when your team is around and the enemy can't defend, you might as well just take the turret. If your team is able to accelerate the game, which we could, because we have Blitzcrank, really easy to force things. So we took that, and then we hooked someone because we hooked Lulu because Lulu tried too hard to defend the turret. And then we converted that into, not a lot, but having the enemy team have less power on the map means that we converted it into like a negative play for them. Like they couldn't do anything because Lulu was dead. And we basically just kept repeating that process. We'd go to an objective, we'd take it. If they tried to defend it, we'd hook them and kill them. And we just kept repeating that over and over. And there was very little they could do about it because nobody on their team could survive a hook. The tankiest member of the team was Yorick. He had a Triforce.